Okay, tonight is the book of Genesis, chapter 1.
In the beginning, God created the heaven and the earth was without form and void, and darkness was upon the face of the deep, and the Spirit of God moved upon the face of the waters. And God said, "Let there be light," and there was light. And God saw the light, that it was good, and God divided the light from the darkness. And God called the light day, and the darkness he called night. And the evening and the morning were the first day.
Okay, the very first verse of the Bible says, "In the beginning, God created the heaven and the earth." Okay, and so everything starts from there. And just this one sentence, or this one verse, or this one phrase causes disagreement among people, or debate. All right, there's people who don't believe that God created the earth. All right, they say that it just kind of showed up. All right, or that there was something that happened that was a big bang and things just got thrown all around the universe, and the earth was one of those things, and it just kind of turned into the earth from there. Okay, now, to me, if you're talking about science, all right, they consider that the scientific explanation, but yet to me, there's more questions than answers in that. Like, well, where did it really start from, and how did this big bang occur, and how did just a random piece of rock turn into the earth with people on it and animals? All right, and to me, it's more unscientific than scientific. All right, so it really is, to me, makes more sense that there would be some kind of an intelligent creator that made the earth. All right, and that would be God. All right, now, at the same time, it says in the beginning that God created the heavens and the earth. So if you were going to somehow be able to look back, I mean, there may have been something like a big bang or a moment of creation, but that was implemented by God, right? Not just by itself, but that was implemented by God. That God did something that started the universe, all right? And so, it's almost impossible for us to really comprehend what that would have been like, because how do you think of an existence with no universe, right? I mean, what would that have been even like, all right? It doesn't make any sense, all right? But yet, when we're talking about things of God, I mean, we try to grasp it the best we can, all right? But, God is who he is and we're who we are, all right? And so it says here, in the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth. So we kind of need to at least believe that, or the rest of the Bible doesn't really make any sense, right? Because if you don't believe that God created the heaven and the earth, well, then we're already not really believing in God, right? I mean, because any other explanation would be like, okay, the earth created itself, and then maybe somehow God came along. I mean, it doesn't really make any sense. Now, as you look at that first verse, okay, now what date is attached to it? When did God create the heavens and the earth? There is no actual date attached to the verse. It just says in the beginning. Right? See, now, some people have also tried to take all the writings of the Bible, say in the book of Genesis and so forth, and they count up the years that each person lived, how long Adam lived, and how long his sons lived, and how long different ones lived, and they added all together, and they determined that if that's all there was, is what was talked about in the Bible, that the heavens and the earth were created 6,000 years ago, all right, just by adding up the years in the Bible. All right, so in other words, around the year 4000 BC would have been when it's created. Right? Well, the only problem with that is you look at at things that people have discovered, fossils and whatever, and it's clearly the Earth would appear to be a lot older than 6,000 years old. All right, it's be millions or even billions of years old. So people sometimes use that to say, well, the Bible can't be right because the Bible says the Earth is 6,000 years old, and it's clearly older than that. Right? Well, that's why I asked you what date is attached to the first verse. There is no date. Right? Just as in the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth. It could have been 1 billion years ago. Right? It doesn't just because every year of the billion years is not written up in the book of Genesis doesn't mean that it was only 6,000 years ago. Right? So, again, there are people, and many religious people that swear that Earth's only 6,000 years old, and that somehow the evidence has been faked to make it look like the Earth is a lot older than what it is, or whatever. Right? Again, you're entitled to believe that. All right? But I think you sound more credible if you at least open to the possibility that the Earth is as old as what it appears to be, right? And rather than you're sticking your head in the sand and ignoring what would be scientific evidence, okay? So, like I said, there's nothing that contradicts that, the account in the Bible versus that kind of a discovery, because in the beginning God created the heavens and the earth. So the beginning could have been any time, right? And I'm willing to say it was any time, right? It was, could have been 1 billion years ago, right? It just says in the beginning. All right, so that's all that about just for the first verse. All right, but again, it's kind of an important understanding, all right, because otherwise people try to poke holes in the creation story and say that this is just a fairy tale, that really it's evolution is the way, and and a Big Bang theory and so forth, all right, whereas the account in the Bible accounts for what has occurred as long as you don't try to attach years and dates to these things. So whenever that beginning was, okay, however long ago it was, as in the second verse it says, the earth was without form and void, all right, in other words, there was nothing to it. It says it was just all dark and maybe there was some kind of water involved there, right, at the time that God created the earth. So it was just, if you were able to see at that time, you just see something totally covered with water, all right, and I guess maybe it was gravity holding the water onto the earth, but that would have been all there was at the beginning. There was no real form to it because God was just starting out in creating the earth there, okay? So it says the Spirit of God moved upon the waters, all right, and the first thing God said, let there be light, all right? And it says, now there was light. So now, if you were able to look at it at this point, first it was all dark, you wouldn't see anything, but now it's light. Now you could see the light, you could see that there's some kind of light, that you could see what it was that God had created. And he hasn't created the sun yet, so let's not get ahead of ourselves, all right? But yeah, there was enough light that you'd be able to see what God had created. And actually, one other thing I guess I should say with this is, this is written, in the Bible, so obviously somebody wrote these words down, okay, but nobody was around at the time this happened. There were no people, obviously, they hadn't even been created yet, so there was nobody to view this and witness it and take notes, right? It had to be something that God told somebody, maybe Adam at the very beginning, this is how I did it, and then Adam would have made some record of it. So if there's any, I'll say, shortcuts, or if it's summarized or details are skipped, well, nobody was there anyway, so how can anybody really say, oh yes, I saw this, nobody's there to view it, right? It was just happening before people were even created. Yeah, so now it says, as God has said, let there be light, and there was light, okay? So now you see in 4 it says, God saw the light was good, all right? So he used the light to kind of break up the periods of darkness, and said, okay, the light will be called day, and the darkness will be called night, all right? So right away it was set up with a period of light and a period of dark, all right? Which of course we have down to today. You have a day and a night, right? Now, again, some will say that, because he's talking about day and night, that equates to the 24-hour period that we have now. But to me, not necessarily, all right? I mean, it just has to do, the way that day and the night occur now is that's how fast the earth turns, right? And so the sun is where it is, and so the sun is on part of the earth for a period of hours, and then the earth turns, and you're away from the sun, and then it's dark, okay? Well, he may not even started the spinning yet, right, at this point, so who's to say that it had to be a 24-hour period? He just made a period of light and a period of dark for now, and so the light was the day, and the night was the dark. So far we got an earth with water and night and day. All right. So far after the first day, which was some period of time. All right. Whether it was 24 hours or some other period of time. And again, it's not to say that God could not have created this in 24 hours. Obviously, He can do stuff instantaneously. Right. So it's not that that's why he says, oh, well, God couldn't have done it that fast, because that's too short a period of time. Obviously, God could create everything in seconds if He wanted to, but it would appear more likely that it was a longer period of time than a day.
And God said, let there be a firmament in the midst of the waters, and let it divide the waters from the waters. And God made the firmament, and divided the waters which were under the firmament from the waters which were above the firmament, and it was so. And God called the firmament heaven, and the evening and the morning were the second day.
The firmament would be basically if you think of the earth, what they call the earth's atmosphere, all right, where you look up and there's some kind of a covering over the earth, all right, that would be the firmament, all right, the covering that kind of separates the earth from what we now call outer space, all right, because obviously you can see the moon and the stars, all right, but there's some kind of a something that separates the atmosphere of the earth from what's above it, and that's the firmament. It separates what was up there from what's down here, right? So that's why it keeps kind of everything together in the earth, right? I mean, the earth isn't it's not solid all around. You can go through it, you can see through it, but yet the earth is a compact thing. Everything is inside the Earth's atmosphere, and so that's the firmament, all right? That's what holds everything together, and so it separates what we would call outer space from what we call the Earth. And that's what it says there, right? So now it says that God called the firmament heaven, all right, which is an interesting thing, all right? Almost like, okay, that you're separating the Earth from where God lives, all right? But they're not saying God lives right on the other side of the Earth's atmosphere or anything, all right? But the idea that what's not of Earth is heaven. So I mean, that's what the real separation is about here.
And God said, let the waters under the heaven be gathered together unto one place, and let the dry land appear, and it was so. And God called the dry land earth, and the gathering together of the waters called the seas, and God saw that it was good.
Right, so now all the water that's under the firmament, right? In other words, the waters that are making up the earth. Because again, remember, still it's all water. See, now it says at this point God separates the water, right, and kind of gathers the water together into what we refer to today as the sea, or bodies of water, right? And what's in between the bodies of water is the dry land or the earth, right? So today we obviously have we have continents, and you have oceans, and you have different bodies of water, right? Well, this is where God did that, right? He separated the idea of the land and the water so that you would have them both. Right? Now, if you think about though the way the earth is constructed, I mean, it really it would be solid, or fairly solid at its core, and you'd have all different things poking up. So there really is a matter of maybe a little bit of molding here and just shifting there, right, enough to make some of the land pop up, and the rest have the water all around it, right? So again, however God was able to mold the model here of the earth, but it came out with some land and some water. So you have the dry land and you have the sea.
And God said, let the earth bring forth grass, the herb yielding seed, and the fruit tree yielding fruit after his kind, whose seed is in itself upon the earth, and it was so. And the earth brought forth grass, an herb yielding seed after his kind, and the tree yielding fruit, whose seed was in itself after his kind, and God saw that it was good. And the evening and the morning were the third day.
All right, so now that we have land and we have sea, so now we'll sort of develop the land here a little bit. All right, so you see what's happening in verse 11. So let the earth bring forth grass, all right, and then this is, but the herb will yield seed. It says, and then the fruit tree, fruit after some kind, seed in itself. What he was creating was a reproducing kind of a system. Right, see, it's not like he just said, okay, here's some grass, boom, 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 and here's some trees, pop, 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 all right, and gee, doesn't that look pretty, right? But in addition to starting it out that way, they each had seeds that would fall to the ground and then would replant, so that the trees would make more trees and the grass would make more grass, right? Which is the way it works today, right? You're not constantly having to say, okay, every year we got to make new grass, or we got to make new trees. It's over a period of millions of years. There's still trees and grass, so it's stuff that reproduces itself because of the seeds that are produced. And the same for the fruit, right? They mentioned that the fruit in here in 12, a tree yielding fruit whose seed was in itself. So most fruits that you get have seeds in it, right? If it's an apple or an orange or a watermelon, it has seeds in it, and those seeds grow more apples and oranges and watermelon, okay? So it's a reproducing system that he created, which again, it's a nice little system here, right? The stuff grows, and then what's inside makes more stuff grow.
And God said, let there be lights in the firmament of the heaven, to divide the day from the night, and let them be for signs, and for seasons, and for days and years. And let them be for lights in the firmament of the heaven, to give light upon the earth. And it was so. And God made two great lights, the greater light to rule the day, and the lesser light to rule the night. He made the stars also. And God set them in the firmament of the heaven to give light upon the earth, and to rule over the day and over the night, and to divide the light from the darkness. And God saw that it was good. And the evening and the morning were the fourth day.
Now where he's going to set up the whole system where it's going to be lit, I'll say on its own, right? That this is where the sun gets created, and the stars, and the moon, which reflects the sun's light at night, right? So creating a source of light. Up to this point, he said that let there be light, so we don't know what that light was at this point, whether maybe it's even the light of God himself, right? We don't know what exactly was there, but now he's setting up his own lighting system that's going to continue to provide the light going forward. right? So as you see in 14, let there be lights in the firmament to divide the day from the night, okay? So obviously that's your sun, right? Let them be for signs and seasons and days and years, right? See, this is where the sun would, the rising of the sun supposedly, or setting of the sun would divide the days, and the sun, right, as the earth goes around the sun, that's your seasons, right? Just like it is today. When you're close to the sun, it's summer. When you're farther away, it's winter. You know, that kind of thing. So you set up the whole solar system to have seasons and days and years, and the light that would divide up these things, and the sun would determine when these periods of time occur, right? So that whole system was kicked in here on the fourth day of creation. Again, however long a period that might have been. And I suppose a case could be made for maybe after this point, maybe it went down to the 24-hour period. That's right, but people want to say, well, gee, you know, the rising of the sun happens every 24 hours. It wasn't even created until the fourth day, all right? So for the first 3 days, it's totally open as to how long it might have been, right? But yeah, again, maybe after this, maybe it went on to the current system because God then created it to, you know, revolve around it and so forth, all right? So on the fourth day is when all that kind of action was occurring. 16, it says, God made two great lights, the greater light to rule the day and the lesser light to rule the night, all right? So, you know, the sun would be your greater light to rule the day, and to me, the moon was likely the thing, even though the moon it just reflects the sun, but at night, it's a lesser light, and that's what gives you some light at night, and plus the stars, but again, it's all things, the sun is bouncing off those things, right? None of those things are sources of light themselves, right? But maybe the stars might have some gaseous stuff or light, but that would be a much lesser light, so that would be your nighttime stuff that's going on. Okay, so you know, you can really see how there's the greater light and the lesser light, you know, day versus night. Let's get to the end of verse 18, and it says, again, God saw that it was good. All right, so right, each thing that He creates, when He's done creating it, you know, you can kind of picture Him saying, okay, tweak it, okay, good, all right, that's done. Let's move on to the next thing.
Right.
Okay? Because the work of God is good, so God is recognizing the things He's creating are good. That the earth was good, all right. The sun and the stars were good, all right, and all the things He's created were good things.
And God said, let the waters bring forth abundantly the moving creature that hath life, and fowl that may fly above the earth in the open firmament of heaven. And God created great whales, and every living creature that moveth, which the waters brought forth abundantly after their kind, and every winged fowl after his kind, and God saw that it was good. And God blessed them, saying, be fruitful and multiply, and fill the waters in the seas, and let fowl multiply in the earth. And the evening and the morning were the fifth day.
Okay, so we're up to day 5 of the creation process, right? And on day 5, God is creating 2 types of things. The things that would occupy the water, okay, like he mentions whales, but really anything that would be like a swimming type of a fish, or all the sea life, you know, lobsters, octopus, whatever, right, that was all created here. And the birds, right, the fowls of the air. So these were the 2 things that were created on day 5, right, which, as we know, you know, is many different things within those general classes. There's many types of fish, there's many types of birds, you know, eagles down to sparrows and doves and whatever. Okay, all those things were created on day 5. So not only did He create them, all right, in 21, but in 22, it says, God blessed them, saying, be fruitful and multiply, right? So just like with the fruit, you know, where it had the seeds and then the trees, the seeds and the grass, right? In essence, He's creating a similar reproducing system of birds and fish, that birds can make more birds and fish can make more fish, right? He said, be fruitful and multiply. So as we know, that all these things make other ones, right? I mean, none of us can create a bird, right? I mean, God created the first bird, but now birds make birds and fish make fish, because God created a reproducing kind of a system.
And God said, let the earth bring forth the living creature after his kind, cattle and creeping thing, and beast of the earth after his kind, and it was so. And God made the beast of the earth after his kind, and cattle after their kind, and everything that creepeth upon the earth after his kind, and God saw that it was good.
We talked about the birds which fly and the fish which are in the water, right? Well, now we need the things that are on the actual dry land, right? So here, this is where all the other animals are created. like all the animals that would live on land, right? So I mean, it mentions cattle, right? But really, any animals would be horses, elephants, dogs, cats, right? And any kind of animal that goes on the earth was created at this time, right? And so it says God made the beast of the earth after his kind, and cattle after their kind, and everything that creeps or crawls, right? These are all the things that were created. And again, it was, I don't know if it's spelled out here, but of course it was a reproducing kind of a system, all right? That cats make more cats, elephants make more elephants, and so forth, all right? So, these were all the animals that were made to be on the earth now, and they would be able to reproduce themselves.
And God said, "Let us make man in our image, after our likeness, and let them have dominion over the fish of the sea, and over the fowl of the air, and over the cattle, and over all the earth, and over every creeping thing that creepeth upon the earth." So God created man in his own image. In the image of God created he him. Male and female created he them. And God blessed them, and God said unto them, Be fruitful, and multiply, and replenish the earth, and subdue it, and have dominion over the fish of the sea, and over the fowl of the air, and over every living thing that moveth upon the earth.
Okay, so finally, the big finale here, okay, these created fish and birds and cattle and animals and so forth, and finally, we're going to create one more species. It says in our own image, all right, so God's going to say, in my own image, I'm going to create something, all right, and that something is people, all right, and so he's going to create them in his image. Now, in 26 where it says, let us make man in our own image, after our likeness, and so forth. Now, sometimes people will ask, well, why is the word our there, right? Why wouldn't God say, I'm going to make man in my own image, right? So our sounds like it's multiple, right? It's talking about more than one person or more than one being or something, okay? And now, different people have different ideas as to what this could be, right? I mean, I myself would just take it that, God, as we understand it, is comprised of the Father, the Son, and the Holy Ghost, right? So, I mean, I'm comfortable with that, with saying that the hour is that, all right? Because God is kind of a three-in-one God. I mean, another way of looking at it is, God was surrounded probably by the angels at this point, so he could have said to the angels, let's make man in our image, all right, and referring to the angels as well, all right? So it was some group of heavenly beings, but in any case, I mean, it's in our own image, but the idea is that people were going to be created in the image of God, and so that's why man, man and woman are higher than the animals, all right? See that. Now, today in today's world, the people, some people are big like animal protection type people, all right? And again, there's nothing wrong with that. I mean, you don't want to be cruel to animals, all right? But on the other hand, animals are not equal to people, all right? So if it comes down to a person versus an animal, I'm sorry, the animal is the one that has to be, people sacrificed or go, all right? Because people are the ones created in God's image, all right? So like I said, I'm not for cruelty to animals at all, but but if it comes down to it, if you can save people's lives by sacrificing animals, that's okay, all right? Because people are created in God's image, so that's the highest form of entity on earth is people. Okay, so that's very important to know that. So you're created in God's image, so you're very valuable to God because He created you in His image. Okay, so that's good to know. Right? Okay, so and in fact in 26 it says, so after our likeness, He says, let them have dominion over the fish of the sea and the fowl of the air and the cattle. In other words, people are in charge of the animals, all right? They can take care of the animals, but dominion means when you think of how the word dominion is usually used, as like a king has his dominion, right? And in other words, what he rules over, right, is his dominion. So the people were meant to rule over the animal kingdom, not the other way around, right? So it's a good distinction, right? That people are the highest form that God created in His likeness, and to have dominion over the earth and all the other creatures of the earth. Okay, so to 27, all right, it mentions in the image of God He created man. Male and female created He them, all right? So because He created man and woman, right? Now in the next chapter we're going to see a little bit more about how He created, woman versus the man, right? But the idea is that both species are in the image of God, right? And so that's why it was never meant to be that, man was somehow, more valuable than a woman or something, right? It's just because he created both of them. He had male and female, so he created them, right, in his image, right? And furthermore, in today's world, see, if I had this Bible study even 5 years ago, I would never even have to think of mentioning this, all right? But in today's world, as you may be aware, that there's a big deal being made over genders, in terms of people are claiming that there's more than two genders, all right? That there's more than just males and females. That you can be any kind of gender you want, all right? Or you can be both, or you can change from one to the other, from one day to the next, all right? That this is what people are trying to put forth now, right? So the whole thing of gender is really very much in the news now, and people who say there's only man and woman, it's like almost like you're a bigot, all right, or you're hateful, or you hate all these poor people that are some other gender, right? It says right here, it says God created man's own image, male and female created he them, all right? Not male and female at the same time, not some other gender or some X gender or whatever. Male and female created he them, period, okay? So that's the only genders. So to me, if you're a believer in God, you cannot be a subscriber to this idea that there's, 5 genders or 100 genders or an infinite number of genders, all right? It's male and female, because that's what God created. Now, verse 28 is one I also like to highlight, right? Because when people, or when scientists have, dug up fossils and things and evidence of the past, right, that they've unearthed things that are known as dinosaurs, all right? You've heard of dinosaurs, obviously, right? Different types, a brontosaurus or a Tyrannosaurus Rex or whatever and so forth, right? Nowhere in the Bible does it mention dinosaurs. So people say, well, what's up with dinosaurs, all right? That some might say, well, that somehow those bones weren't real, all right? Or again, making it sound like somehow the evidence has been faked to make it look like there were dinosaurs, right? Again, I don't believe that evidence is being faked, right? I believe there were dinosaurs, right? So the question is, where were they? When were they? Again, there's no mention of dinosaurs here, right? Here's the key, right? Remember the very first verse we said, in the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth, right? Now, sometime later, he created all these other things, cattle and fish and man and so forth, right? Now, I believe that the dinosaurs were created in the earlier part, all right, and became extinct, right? And now, and perhaps even what they refer to as cavemen might have been lived at that time and became extinct, right? And the reason that I would say that is because now in verse 28, it says after he created the male and female, all right, and it says, God blessed them and said, be fruitful and multiply and replenish the earth, okay? Now the word replenish means there was something there before, and now it's gone, and we're starting over again, all right? Let's replenish the earth, all right? So that to me explains the idea of dinosaurs and cavemen, that they lived on the earth at one time, they became extinct, all right? And now God creates man and woman and says, okay, we're starting over, all right? Be fruitful, multiply, replenish the earth, all right? And we're going to replenish it with people now as opposed to the things that were there before. Okay.
And God said, behold, I have given you every herb bearing seed, which is upon the face of all the earth, and every tree in the which is the fruit of a tree yielding seed. To you it shall be for meat. And to every beast of the earth, and to every fowl of the air, and to everything that creepeth upon the earth, wherein there is life, I have given every green herb for meat, and it was so. And God saw everything that he had made, and behold, it was very good. And the evening and the morning were the 6th day.
All right, so now God is addressing the man and the woman who he's created, right? And so in 29 says, behold, I've given you all these things to help you live, right? I've given you herbs, things that are going to grow, plants, fruit, and so forth. I've given you animals, all right, who are going to be meat for you, right? This is all for you to eat and consume and live on, right? So God created a system that would not only, be there for beauty and for interesting creatures, but also for food for man, all right? And so, again, I point this out because, again, there are people who may dispute this, all right? There are people who don't believe you should eat meat, for example, all right? And again, if somebody wants to choose that for themselves, again, that's their choice. But God gave us animals to be meat, all right? So that's why, to me, I see nothing wrong with eating, chicken or steak or that kind of thing, because that's how God intended it, that we would eat these things for ourselves for food, all right? So it's not being cruel to the animals because I'm eating beef, all right? I mean, it's, again, if for your own health you want to choose to stay away from something, that's your choice. But to make it that it's somehow immoral, all right, or the animal, you're participating in killing animals, and that's mean. Right? Well, God created certain animals to be meat for us, just as He created fruit and vegetables and so forth for us. It's all meant to sustain man, but the highest entity He created, made in the image of God. Okay, and so that at this point, and by verse 31. Says that now He's surveying everything He's created, all right? So it's just trying to picture God saying, okay, we got the earth, all right? We got the sun and the stars, the moon, that makes a nice system here, and the earth goes around the sun, all right? And we got grass and trees that are going to reproduce. We got animals and fish and birds that are going to reproduce. Now we got man, and who's going to reproduce and replenish the earth, and we got stuff for him to eat. This is a really good system that I made, all right? And so that's why you notice there was many times in the chapter where it said God saw that it was good. Okay, here in verse 31, it says what? It says, behold, it was very good, all right? Because He's got the whole system that's been made, and this is a really good system, and this is going to work because God created it, all right? And that is the end of the period that's going to be known as the 6th day. And then in the next chapter, we find out what happens on the 7th day, all right? But God created the whole world in 6 days of whatever period of time those days represented, but in 6 days He created the whole earth and said this was very good.